Hello, everyone. This is Zach Mitchell here with the First Party Transport Podcast, episode 2, with my co-host Angel Pizarro. Angel, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well, Zach. How about yourself?
Doing well. I was looking forward to this interview. I mean, this is the first time hosting a podcast, and I'm sure this is your first time on a podcast. So this is new grounds, new waters for us.
Absolutely.
As a company.
Absolutely. This is definitely new for me. I've never envisioned myself doing a podcast or anything within this nature like that.
And this is yeah, this is the first our first go around here, and so we just basically want to share with the audience, with First Priority Transport. Um, could you see yourself starting a trucking company when you look back on your life to where you are today? Um, did you see yourself, starting a trucking company? Like what's your story? What's your background?
Honestly, I did not see myself starting a transportation company, and I my background was a little bit different. I ended up starting at the wrong path, and I ended up making some mistakes along the journey. But what got me into trucking? What got me more into trucking was my younger brother, Brian Pizarro. Shout out to him. And he pretty much turned me on to the transportation industry, and he pretty much, told me, "Hey, listen, brother, you're not gonna get rich, but you'll be able to make an honest living and provide for your family. So if that's what you want to do, then you're welcome to come on board." And that was pretty much the start of my journey, learning how to become a driver, because we didn't start out as a um, truck driver. He actually owned a hot shot um, truck and trailer, and then he graduated into trucking. So that's how I ended up starting. We ended up doing hot shot first.
Okay, so you learned pretty much everything when you first got started. You learned Brian was pretty much the guy who taught you everything that you know today.
For the most part, he taught me the basics. I went over the road with him. Doing hot shot, we started doing vehicles. So I learned how to secure vehicles, and I ended up getting behind a dually, learning how to maneuver the trailers, and yeah, I did that for a couple months all through the Appalachian Mountains. And then I ended up fading away, and we pretty much parted our ways and ended up going different directions there.
Okay. So was he leased on to a transportation company, or did he have his own company, or what was the original, I guess, connection for him when he first got started?
I believe he first got started when he got out of the military. I believe he was leased on to a company called Central Penn from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and they had
Okay.
gave him an opportunity to own his own truck, and I mean, pardon me, his own dually and trailer. So I believe that's how he ended up getting started with that.
Okay, and as far as the equipment that you use today, as far as straps, chains, binders, tarping, all of that, does that was that through Brian as well, through your prior experience? And how long was that experience before you actually decided, hey, I kind of want to start my own rodeo here?
Well, that was a different story and a different journey. And how that fast forward to that part was Brian had owned his own truck and trailer. And I was just getting home from serving my time. And I pretty much wanted to get into the transportation company because I seen what COVID did to this country. And if you was not an essential driver or an essential employee, your business pretty much got shut down. So I automatically put in my mind that, hey, listen, if I come home, I have to do something that's essential. And me, I didn't have much options. So I just said, all right, well, you know what? I'm gonna pick up where I left off at, and that's when I decided to go into the trucking company. So back to your question, how I ended up
Yeah.
learning how to secure these loads. I ended up purchasing my trailer, and I provided an opportunity to my brother, and I proposed to him, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. Do you mind if I loan you my trailer and go on with you, you know, and learn how to secure these loads? I mean, the deal was pretty much I didn't charge him anything for that. Like I just literally like I ended up going on the road for free. So I'm like, listen, brother, you can use my trailer just along as, I'll go on, I'll help. My motivation was to learn. So I wanted him also to, I wanted to help him out. Because he was renting out a trailer. So I'm like, all right, well, use my trailer and then we'll both go out on the road. We'll learn how to use this equipment. And when it's my turn to do it, and I'll know how to actually secure these loads.
So, how much time did you spend with your brother, I guess, overall learning the day-to-day operations when it comes to running a transportation company?
I didn't spend much time with him, but I did call him a lot and picked his brain a lot. But like, I actually went over the road with him for about a month and a half, and that's when he pretty much did what he had to do, and I did what I had to do, and I completed my objective, which is learning how to secure, how to use these ratchet binders, how to use these straps, along with YouTube. I'm not just gonna give all the credit, but YouTube has really taught me a lot about what I need to know.
YouTube University.
Yes, yes. If it wasn't for YouTube, I mean, I probably would not know what to do. To be honest with you.
Right, right. And so, what would you say, like, I guess, like, for newer truckers out there, like, what would you recommend, like, if you could go back and do it again, as far as experience goes and just learning overall, like, what do you think's required? Like, how much time is required to learn these skills? Like, I know a lot of people, they'll lease on to trucking companies after they get their CDL. They'll get the proper training and education that they need. They'll go work for somebody for a couple years and then they'll go out and start their own trucking company. But what would you say, like, what's the best way for somebody to learn, I guess, other than going that route? Because I know a lot of people, when they get their CDL, they don't want to necessarily lease on with somebody else or whatnot. But what are your recommendations when it comes to that?
Well, my recommendation is for them to really do their due diligence and really do their homework in regards to what direction they want to go, because this is no joke. You can really hurt someone, and if you don't know what you're doing or you don't know how to do it, then I would recommend you actually going under someone so they can actually mentor you and you learn how to operate. I don't recommend for them to do what I did. My story was completely different. I went hard from the beginning. My attitude was go hard or go home. I literally went from coming home, um, you know, going to CDL school. I had some people along that helped me accomplish that. They helped fund my schooling. Shout out to my sister. And a couple friends of mine who pitched in and helped me, you know, fund the CDL school. So that's how I managed to go with my CDL school. And then I ended up selling my home, and that's how the decision was, well, what are you gonna do? Either you're gonna go work for a company or you're just gonna go start on your own, like how you usually do it. And I went on my own, and yes, it was hard, but I'm here now, and I can say that I'm proud of myself.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is an amazing accomplishment. I mean, to go from incarceration, the past, just, going through all of that and making that huge sacrifice when you come out. I mean, you're an inspiration and hope to a lot of people that want to change their lives, and do something good. As far as, this is a great redemption story for you, and I'm so blessed to be a part of it. It's truly awesome. And so, as far as, I guess, startup cost goes, I mean, your situation was different. I mean, you had a house. I mean, you obviously huge sacrifice selling your house, put it into a truck and trailer. So I would say that you don't owe anything on your current truck and trailer, correct? Like, that was all paid for from the sale of your house.
Well, when I first ended up selling my house, which it was also an inheritance from my grandfather, the man who raised me. So it wasn't that I purchased a home. This home was, it was a sacrifice that my grandfather, the man who raised me, George Razak Muhammad. He was my foster grandfather, but he was my grandfather. and I love him very much. God bless his soul, wherever he may be.
Yeah.
But my my expenses were pretty high. Like I ended up purchasing a Kenworth T680 2015. I think paid 48,000 for it, not knowing what you know. Well, I just fell in love with the truck, not knowing, you know, what to look for. And when I ended up getting mechanics to look for, the truck had several issues, which I ended up spending another 35 thousand in repairs, and you could do the math there. And before I even ended up getting an NC, I ended up purchasing the truck after school. Then I ended up going to a permit place, and they pretty much helped me out with forming my LLC, submitting for my MC, and doing all the requirements to operate. So for the first year, I didn't really operate into the last 2 weeks of the year. So like it was like all expenses. So it was hard.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say, so when you were on the road with your brother, did were you under his MC or did you have your MC established at that point?
I had my truck and trailer, but I was under the process of getting my MC, and it was like a 3 months process or a 3 months wait, I believe it was. I could be wrong, but I quite don't remember. But I think the process was like a 2 to 3 months wait into it gets processed through the system. So while it was getting processed, I ended
Right.
up going over the road with my brother and using going under his company, and all for free. Like I didn't do anything. Like I wasn't getting paid, or I just wanted to learn.
Yeah, that's one of the challenges that we see, with people that first start up their own trucking companies is the whole MC issue, you know. I know that a lot of different brokers and shippers when it comes to experience, they you see a lot of them nowadays just because, brokers trying to cover their own backs, they'll require somebody to have at least 6 months of MC authority. So here you are, in order to get your MC, you have to shell out cash for the insurance. You're making expensive monthly payments for insurance. And what is that for you? What are you paying insurance wise
Well,
currently?
at the time, that was another issue, another roadblock that I was going through, because we were based out of Tampa, Florida. So like all the insurances out of Tampa, Florida, being a new company, was very expensive. They were asking for like $4,500 down payment and close to like $3,500 monthly payments. So I was quite stuck there. And then thanks to my brother, he had a contact in Texas. Her name is Ashley. She's awesome. She was an insurance agent, which she helped me with obtaining insurance, and it was much less than Florida. So that's how I ended up getting my insurance. But I still had to ended up, you know, coughing up the expenses for close to 5 months before any broker wanted to even work with me. So yeah, it was expensive.
Hmm. And so you got started so first priority transport. When was the official, I guess, start or launch date for the company?
The official launch date, well, the start of
I
first,
say effective date, I
right, the
guess.
effective day,
Yeah.
it was sometime around July of 2022. And I didn't
Okay.
actually like start generating any revenue into the last 2 weeks of December of 2022. So yes, I forked out a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. And I remember, I was fortunate enough to come alongside you, trying to help you out in the initial stages. And it was a challenge to try to get work, and it's like a lot of newer trucking companies, that's the obstacle that they face. It's a lot of outflows and not many opportunities for inflows, which is I know that that can be a huge roadblock and a deterrence for newer, or for those individuals that have aspirations to starting their new company, because I know that and it's gotten even worse, or with brokers just having stricter requirements. I get it, but at the same time, it's like it prevents a lot of newer companies from entering the workforce. When you put these restrictions down, it's like how is a new trucking company going to survive? You have all this outflows, and then on top of that, this is an industry where you're already heavily financed. You think about it, the equipment is expensive. You're literally purchasing a house on wheels in terms of cost, and then with that you have inflation that's going on, higher costs when it comes to fuel and everything. And it's just like I just it's just it blows my mind. And I know that me with my background in the brokerage industry and whatnot, and just coming alongside you, I've learned a lot of just the day-to-day operational expenses for you. And it's just like it's just it's hard. It is hard, and it's like I don't even know how you do it. I mean, you have to be, like you said, highly motivated, and clearly you are. And I'm very blessed to have crossed paths with somebody like yourself that is highly motivated. Because and I wouldn't blame somebody for wanting to just call it quits. I mean, it is tough.
Oh yeah.
Um, and so having said all of that, I mean, I guess I've already highlighted some of the challenges, but if you would like to highlight some of the challenges that you face personally, or what you're seeing out there, to share with the audience.
Well, it all depends what goals you're trying to reach. For me, it was more about redeeming myself. Providing a service to the community, to the country, establishing credit, personal credit, business credit. So I knew that this was going to be a long journey for me. So I already put it in my head that, hey, listen, you're not going to be making what you are going, what you invested. It's going to take a while. And for me, I ended up paying myself less. So it was about providing for me. So for me, it's like, hey, this is what I'm gonna do. Then this is what I gotta do. So it was all about sacrifices, and I'm still sacrificing to this day. Um, but I'm very happy, and I'm happy where I'm at. Compared to where I was to where I'm at now. I'm really grateful, and all I have to say is thank God for what's happening in my life.
And that's awesome. That's awesome. And so from where you started out with the truck and trailer. What do you have today? Like, what's the current status of first priority transport as far as the fleet size and equipment? Like, what have you been able to accomplish so far?
Well, it may seem like I have a lot of progress going on. Some people may, say, hey, this guy's going around in circles. But I can say, for me, I've already explained my motives, but it's different for me. So where I started at, I purchased a Kenworth T680 2015. I also purchased a low pro step deck Fontaine 2013, I believe, trailer. I spent close to 33,000 on that, and now I managed to use my other truck as leverage, and I managed to purchase a newer truck. I'm driving now a 2020 Peterbilt 389, and I still owe.
That's pretty
Oh yeah,
badass.
I still owe on it, but I love it.
Yeah. I bet a lot of truckers stop to compliment you on your ride.
Oh yes, they respect it. It's,
And they gotta love the American flag
oh
too.
yeah, man. It's all about the American dream. I mean, if
Yeah.
it's all how you look at it, and you know what? God bless America. I love my country, so why not represent it?
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So, with that being said, what is your vision for first priority transport, like going forward? Like, do you see yourself in the particular niche that you're in now because you have a 53-foot low pro step deck? You're currently hauling, excavators, dozers, construction equipment, industrial machinery, all that types of stuff. But do you see yourself like getting into other niches, like as far as transportation goes, like maybe going into the reefer space, reefer dry van, hauling some produce or like auto parts or, whatever you would typically haul with those trailers? Do you see yourself expanding to that? Or do you see yourself like adding like other components to your company? Like, do you want to get more into like the whole logistics, like warehousing, freight forwarding, international, like domestic, like or I know that some people they just want to focus strictly on the asset based trucking, grow it to a credible amount fleet size, and then they're happy. That's it. But like, what are your goals and aspirations for this company?
For this company, first priority, what I would like is honestly to have a piece of every single part of the transportation industry. And as far as me venturing into other niches, yes, we do want to look at other niches, and we are looking into the reefer. We specialize in oversized loads, because when I started, like, my brother was like, hey, listen, this is where the money's at. It's very hard. Not a lot of people do it. Like, usually it'll take people 10, 15 years before they get into this. But like, my goal was like, no, I want to get into this right now. Like, this is,
Because it's highly specialized
yes, yes.
when it comes to freight transportation, so it makes sense. Yeah.
Yep, yep. So for me, it was like, all right, well, this is where the money's at, and this is where I'm going to start. Like, I don't have no experience, but it was different because for me, like,
Don't tell brokers that. Don't
right?
they don't need to know that.
No, no, not at all, not at all. You didn't hear that. You didn't hear. In fact, just
And
kind of edit. But yeah,
we're all about trial and error here at first party
absolutely.
transport. But
Talking about trial and error, just to go back on when I started, like right out of school, when I purchased my truck and I purchased my trailer, not knowing much, and mind you, I ended up going with the manual, um, no restriction. Like, I ended up like going hard from the beginning. So when I purchased my truck, my brother's like, hey. You don't know what you're doing, which he was right. A lot of people were like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing, but I have driven a lot in my life, cars and smaller
yeah,
smaller trucks, and I had some general knowledge with manual. So my first truck was
right.
a 13 speed manual. So I'm like, what are you gonna do? I'm like, well, I sold my house, I purchased a truck, I got my authority, I'm paying insurance. I'm already like close to 170 grand in investment. Um, you know, to me, it's like, what are you gonna do? So I'm like, all right, well, I'm gonna get in my truck. I'm gonna fill it up. We're gonna go to the parking lot. We're gonna learn how to use it, and that's exactly what I did. I learned how to drive. Then I went from the parking lot to the road. Then I went from the road to the highways, and then once I learned how to drive that, I did the same process with my trailer. I attached the trailer to the truck. I started in the parking lots. I learned how to park. I started driving it on the road. Then I went on the highway, and then that's when I decided to pick up my first load. And that itself was it's for another episode, but it was
Well,
a learning
I
experience.
can I don't know if you were thinking of the same one, but I know one of the first ones we did together where I was helping you. Um, there was one one load. I swear it was the first one, and I get a call from the guy. He's like, "Hey, does your guy know what he's doing?" I said, "Yeah, yeah, of course he does. What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, he put the ramp on backwards, and the machine kind of fell off the ramp itself." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, well." Is he all right? Is the machine okay?" He's like, "Yeah, it's all good, but I mean, that was a close call." I was like, "Wow, that's yeah, that's really unusual. I don't know what's going on there." But I don't know. We look back at that event there, and we learned from that point on, but we got pretty
Oh
lucky.
yeah, oh
That
yeah.
that was because stuff like that can happen. I mean, when you're in a rush or whatever, I mean, this is why, especially working with like when you're transporting like heavy machinery and equipment. I think this was like was it a forklift
Yes,
or something
yes,
or
yes. This was a forklift, and that was actually
so
my second load. Um,
second
yeah,
load.
yeah.
Okay,
That
second
was the
load.
first load with you. But
That's correct. That's correct.
going back to my first load, which I'm gonna go ahead and say it. I didn't know what I was doing. When I purchased my truck, I'm thinking, everything's well. Well, the meters in my truck weren't reading right, so they were marking like we had, close to a half a tank on both tanks and fuel. So we ended up a friend of mine's, Mr. Perez. He said, you know what? You started your transportation company. I'm gonna start the dispatching company. I'm gonna dispatch you, and he did that. He formed a dispatching company, and I'm like, all right, well, we're gonna go hard. You're going hard. We're going hard, and this man literally tried for over a week to get me a load, which he successfully accomplished to get me a load. But the first load, when I picked up that first load on the way to Jacksonville, my truck ended up breaking down. So I'm like, oh man, on my
Oh,
first load, like it ended up breaking down. So I pulled over on the side of the road.
uh,
My my luck, pouring rain, and I had to walk to the gas station.
uh,
Yep. So pouring rain, I walked to the gas station. I called roadside assistance.
nothing says welcome to the trucking industry better than that story right there. Says welcome, Angel Pizarro.
Yes, yes,
Welcome to the trucking industry.
yes. So to make a long story short, I ended up calling
Yeah.
roadside assistance. They couldn't help me. I had to call a tow truck company for them to drive 9 miles away, which they charged me $900 for that. That's how I knew it was serious. So when we ended up going to the repair shop the next day, I slept in my truck. The guy's like, I know what was your issue. You ran out of fuel. I'm like,
Oh.
oh my God.
Oh,
Oh my
man.
God. So
Oh.
I just paid $900 on top of $600 of diagnostic just for them to tell me that I
Oh.
ran out of fuel. So,
Oh.
it made me very angry. That was a
Yeah.
rookie mistake, which,
Is a humbling experience, I bet.
yes, a major.
I mean, if you're gonna go into the industry, you might as well have that right off the bat. That way, your expectations are clearly set from the get-go. It's like, okay, like this is the reality, you know?
Right, right.
Right then and there. It's like how can it get worse? But those are famous last words in this industry. It's like how can it get worse? Well, there's always
Oh
something
yeah.
that can go
Oh
wrong.
yeah.
Which is why it's a high risk industry. Why you see the insurance is so
Oh,
high, you
oh
know?
yes.
It's just
Oh yes.
but yeah.
So mind you, I lost the load. Like the broker had called a hot shot in.
Um
They came in, picked up the load
yeah.
while they were fixing, while the guy went and put fuel in my
Yeah.
truck. So I started, I'm like, all right, well, what are we gonna do? Like, we're close to Jacksonville.
Right.
We'd head deadheaded to some part in Savannah, Georgia, or Brunswick, Georgia.
Brunswick, yep. Yep.
We deadheaded there, and when we deadheaded there, I was literally stuck at that truck stop for almost 2 weeks because I could not get a load, and that's when I just decided,
Oh.
all right, you know what, it's time to go home. And I ended up going home, and I'm like, it's time to go home, recharge, and re-strategize.
So you were there for 2 weeks. I don't mean to cut you off there, but you were there for 2 weeks. What was the issue? Why couldn't you get a load? Was it the MC problem or what kind of challenges were you facing during that time?
Two issues. My main issue was the authority. My authority was not active for more than 6 months,
Yeah.
and no one wanted to give me an
Yep.
opportunity.
Yep.
That was the main
Right.
main issue. The second issue, due to my background, I couldn't get a TWIC card. So everything around there is all port.
Okay.
So not knowing
Yep.
any better, and on top of that, My friend, he really tried very, very hard. He really
Sure.
tried. Like, he called and called, and he was like, "Listen, you're most likely, I love you. You've invested a lot of money. I recommend that you get yourself a professional." And that's when,
And this is Mr.
yeah,
Perez. This is Mr.
yep,
Perez.
Mr. Perez.
We'll have to get Mr. Perez on the podcast here.
Oh, that will be very nice. I'll see if
Well,
I'll see if he can join us
well,
on that. He's a very busy man.
this is a almost this will be an official invitation for Mr. Perez. Mr. Perez, if you're listening, you're next. Episode 3, maybe.
Maybe. We'll see, because
Yeah.
Mr. Perez, he's a very
Yeah.
busy man, and I'll let him know and see what he thinks about that. But it would be very nice if he can come on board and share his story.
Hey, we want to get everybody on here. If you're listening to this right now, or whenever you listen to this podcast episode, but we want to get you know the scoop from everybody. So if you want to be on the podcast, come on board, tell us about your story and your trucking company. We'd love to have you. So
Sure.
this is why we do it. This is for the community.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, going back to the story with the forklifts, that was, well. Let me go back before that. This is how I ended up meeting you. And when I go home, and I tell my friends my story, and one of my friends from the past, at the time, he said, "Hey, listen, I'm playing baseball for a team from my church, and there's this young man. His name is Zachary Mitchells. He's a broker. Maybe, perhaps he can help you out." And at the time, I was still working with Mr. Perez, so I'm like, "Sure, I'll go out there. I'll grab his contact, and that's when I ended up calling you, and then I ended up going, meeting you in person at the field, and
Yep.
that's when I said, well, let me see how it goes with Mr. Perez.
Shout out to Robert.
Robert, yes, shout
Shout
out
out
to
shout out
Robert.
to Robert.
Yep, shout out to Robert. Thanks God to Robert, and he he ended up introducing me to you, and that's when I said, hey, listen, let's see how it goes with Mr. Perez. If it doesn't go well, then I would like for you to, what we would just, like for you to help me out with this. And sure enough, Mr. Perez was like, "Hey, listen, man, we've tried enough. You've invested enough. Just go ahead and work with this man, and get, at least try to make your money back." And that's how I ended up working with you. And now, going back to the first load that you booked for me, this first load ended up being in the airport in Tampa. So that, just that alone, that's complicated. Like, this is your second load. Your first load, you already had complications with your first
Yeah.
load. Now your second
Yeah.
load,
Yeah.
and when we go out there,
Yep.
I unload my ramps. I set up the ramps on the trailer. um
Yep.
but I didn't know that the ramps were supposed to be facing one direction. Some people say they don't really have to face one direction, but some people say they
Mhm.
do. But I ended up putting them both on there. It wasn't that the ramps were in the
Yeah.
wrong direction, because the first three forklifts,
Yeah.
they didn't have any issues. The driver from the forklift had to build momentum to get the forklift on there. So as he was driving
Right.
up, the tire has slipped out of the ramp.
Yeah. You're
We're
you're
good.
you're on.
All right. So
Yeah, we're good. We're good.
their tire ended up slipping off the ramp, and then they
Okay.
assessed the situation, and then they shifted the blame on the ramps. Which I'm like, all
Mm.
right, hey, you're right. The ramp should have been a certain direction, but you have three forklifts on. What happened? But I didn't want to make a big deal out of it. They ended up
Yeah.
loading the last forklift on there, and yeah, it was a success after that.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a whole nother issue too. Like, when you have heavy equipment like that, as far as operating goes, it's like this it's always important to ask, like, hey, am I gonna be the one responsible for loading and unloading, or are they gonna be doing it? So that's always important to identify, you know. But because that's a liability right there. I mean, you as a driver though, like in that situation, I mean, you would probably prefer them to load and unload, correct? I mean, because that's a lot of liability. I mean, if you try to load that yourself or something, God forbid something happens, I mean, that's coming out of your pocket, you know?
Exactly. I mean, yes, I would prefer them to load and unload. And if they want us to load, then I would like for them to at least contribute more into their in into the cost, because not only you're a
Yeah.
truck driver, not only you have to secure the load, but now you have to
Right.
load the load. And that's because of
Yep.
the niche that I chose to. The majority of the customers that contract us, like depending on
Yeah.
depending on who it is, they will load and unload. But some private customers, they will prefer us to load and unload, and I don't
Yeah.
mind to doing that, because it's all about a learning experience for me. So every
Mhm.
opportunity, I take it as an opportunity to learn. Even though I
Yeah.
may not know how to operate this machinery, but I do my homework. I'll do my homework, and I'll get it done. And that's been my attitude from day one.
And there have been times when, I was praying for you, during those moments, like, "Hey, Zach, I'm not too familiar with this particular machine, but, we're gonna figure it out." I was like, "Oh, okay. Alright."
Yes,
I was like,
sir. Yes,
"Oh."
sir.
Because it's as it's nerve-wracking for me not being there, I can only imagine what your experience like, this is a lot on the line for your company and whatnot, and you're trusting in YouTube University to try to, to get this thing onto your trailer, and then not only that, but then off of it. But there was some, I know there's some times where I didn't hear from you for a while, so I was like, okay, usually not hearing from you is good. Um, but yeah, no, I've been really impressed, with how you've been able to learn how to maneuver this type of equipment on and off, like on the fly. It's really impressive. So
Sure.
you definitely have to have a special skill set. So that's why I was like, I wanted to know your background. I wanted to know, like, you know, are you just teaching yourself this on the fly, or did you learn from somebody, or I mean,
No,
what's
no.
what's the secret
The
sauce?
secret
You
is
know?
you have to believe in
So
yourself. That's the secret. You
yeah,
have to believe in yourself. And if you don't know what you're
yeah,
doing, which I didn't, and sometimes I, depend, because there's still machinery that I don't know how to operate. But I've always,
right,
I always say, hey, do your research and ask questions. And when you arrive at the
yeah,
location, look for someone, see if there's a previous or pre another driver loading, or see if you can find an operator, have them explain, give you
yep,
certain pointers and stuff like that. And that's pretty much how it goes. But I would recommend, if you really want to learn, go to one of these operating schools, which they do provide. There's operating machine operating schools out there that will provide you with you know different different machineries to learn, which I'm gonna be doing that in the near future, because there's machines that I want to learn that I cannot learn on the
yeah,
fly. But yeah, I would recommend you to go to one of those operating schools first, because like I said, my journey was different. I don't recommend it for everyone. I mean, you really gotta want it. You really gotta want change. You
yeah,
really gotta want progress. So, I put everything on the line. I've
yeah,
always been, no risk, no reward type of guy.
yeah. Major balls on Angel Pizarro.
Oh man.
You hear to hear. Major. I mean, that's huge. Well, it's I know that we're about 38 minutes in here. And I know that, you got to get back to the rest of your day and whatnot, but I appreciate you, taking time out of your day, and especially on your off day when you should be resting, because I know how hard you work during the week. So, but I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story with the audience. And do you have any final thoughts, any sort of words of encouragement, or recommendations, or anything of that nature, or how can other truckers find you, and how can they contact you?
Well, they can contact us as first priority trans.com, through our website. Also, our my email is at angel at firstprioritytrans.com. You can email me there, and we will reach back out to you. Yes, sir.
Awesome,
And
awesome.
as far as
All right.
as
Well,
far as
yeah.
I do apologize. As far as
No, you're good.
any words of us inspiration to those looking into getting into the transportation industry. Like, you really gotta want it. It's not just about the money. This is about moving America. This we're the backbone of this country. So if you want to be, a part of the workforce and moving America, and making a difference, this, you really got to want it. And I would recommend those that really want to make a change in their life to look into the transportation industry.
Wow, that's awesome. You are very appreciated, Angel. Thank you for everything that you do for the company and just for our nation as a whole. You're literally on the road, OTR. I mean, when's the last time that you've been home? I mean, you're on the road for months on end. I mean, and that's probably something that as a trucker that you'll have to do. That's some of the sacrifices you'll have to make initially. I mean, am I wrong on that or?
No, you're not wrong. And the answer to your question is, I am home. Everywhere I go, it's my home. So I live in my truck, and everywhere this is my home. America's my home. So to me, I am home.
That's awesome. That's awesome. We need more people like you in the world,
Yes,
Angel.
sir.
And just from your background to where you are today, it's very very inspirational, very encouraging to those as well that had that you know background. But you give hope and purpose for a lot of people out there. So I appreciate you sharing your story today. But thanks for your time, and we'll catch you next time on the next episode.
Thank you, Zach. God bless. Likewise.
Yep. God bless you, sir. We'll talk to you
Yes,
soon.
sir.